Hi, I'm Lazaroo-Hood, entrepreneur, philanthropist and family man. This is my podcast, In Conversation With. From the boardroom, back to the beginnings, to the present with my guests, talking about business, family and sport. Today we're in the midst of Tower of London, here to meet Ranald McGregor-Smith. He's the new co-owner of Coleraine Football Club and a corporate legend. From setting up his own investment banking and broking firm to moving through his military career and today to join the football legends. Ranald, thank you.
Good to see you, Ross.
Thanks for joining my podcast today.
No problem at all.
I'm going to go for a wee walk around Tower of London today and your famous place, or your manor of St Catherine's Dock. I'm quite excited to actually go through and see your hotspots.
Okay. No, absolute joy to introduce you to the nicest bit of the poorest borough in London.
And Ranald, can you tell us a little bit about your background, your childhood that has led to the successes over the last, few years that you've basically made this part of your home, moving away from Northern Ireland?
Right. Well, it was like you, growing up in Northern Ireland, one of the things you want to do is get out because it's a brilliant place, but it's quite limiting in terms of if you're ambitious, it's just not a big enough market.
It's a finite pie in Northern Ireland.
Small. And I'm a generation older than you, and as such, there was even less going on. You either wanted to be a civil servant in some way, police or working for the government, or you had a family business, or you were a farmer. And
right.
if that was where you had some money. I mean, you could be a professional there. You could be like an accountant or a lawyer.
Or military you're going into as well, you do that side too.
You could do that, but that's like working for the government, I suppose. Right. And if you wanted to do something bigger and not just be stuck in a small town. So we're both from small towns, to be fair. Lauren and I was brought up in Coleraine. So Coleraine is just a beautiful part of the world.
Stunning near the beaches.
But you don't necessarily want to live there your whole life.
Yep.
So as soon as I could get out, I was always going to leave. Mm-hmm. And my parents had both travelled a bit. They were both Scottish. They'd both.
I didn't know that.
No, McGregor.
I know, but I thought
that's only because you didn't think very hard.
Well, from Larne.
From Larne, that is also true. So they'd both emigrated to Canada, then they'd come back to the UK, and they'd moved to Northern Ireland in the end because the weather was slightly better than Scotland, yep. Even though it rains a bit more, and there were more golf courses. So they were, my dad was a big golfer, and he was quite happy to live in Coleraine, Portrush, Portstewart, Castle Rock, all very close. So we were like Northern Irish, but not like of Northern Ireland, but not really deep down Irish.
Yeah.
So, and my parents, because they both travelled, I was always going to travel a bit as well, at least get away. So, I was always going to come to university in England. Mm-hmm. My sister went to St Andrews. Lovely. And my view was I was going to go as far away as I could from St Andrews. So London was pretty much the obvious place. And I ended up here going to university in London because there was a degree course in banking and international finance.
Amazing.
And in that sixth form or lower sixth at school, when you're doing a careers talk, you were looking at what jobs you wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And I was looking at what the best paid job was. And the best paid job was stockbroker. And I thought, yeah,
I can do that.
I'll be a stockbroker, I'm quite good at sums. And the teacher had said, do you really want to do that? Do you have something safer, be an accountant? And I was, no. Why would I be an accountant? It's like third on the list of best paid jobs. Stockbrokers.
I'm going to go for the
top list. And they went, okay. So this was then back in the 80s. Big Bang was happening.
Wall Street, Michael Douglas, all that.
I do love that. And it's all true, obviously. But yeah, I thought I can get a job in the city. And who knows, the world will be your oyster. Before we go on, I just to say we're just outside Tower of London, which everyone will recognise. Up behind us is All Hallows by the Tower, where my eldest was christened. Because this is, so I lived here since the late 1990s. I've lived in St Catherine's Dock, which is just...
It's a great marina.
Oh, yeah, it's A lovely place, still pretty much hidden in.
That's it.
You know.
But it's only a hop, skip, jump from the corporate square mile.
Oh yeah, that's why we moved here, so I could walk to work, and yeah, it was good fun at the time.
I think it's cracker. And from you leading into, from Northern Ireland, the corporate life of London, investment, broking and banking, what would you say is your driver
Well,
for success?
you know, I suppose it's a bit like everybody, or many people, it's sort of fear and greed in equal measure. In Northern Ireland in the 60s and 70s and 80s, there wasn't really very much money around, you know? Nobody was rich, apart from farmers, of course, because they're always rich. And I felt I wanted to be, you know, I wanted that amount of security. My dad had died when I was 15, so you just wanted to make sure that, first off, that you had your own house and you had it paid for. Then, you just want, when you're young, you just want more stuff. It's quite, now that I'm older, I am 60 now.
You're young now.
Yeah, and of course you couldn't tell, apart from the lack of hair.
Still look better than me.
For me. So to start off with, you want, money almost for its own sake. I mean, and then once you get into the job of I was a corporate stockbroker, and actually you realise that capitalism, I mean, this might sound ridiculous, does good at every turn, because although money, it does make the world go round. It doesn't in itself make you happy, but it does enable you to do good things.
Yes, that's it.
One of the reasons I just loved having my own business was the fact that, you're employing people and you're paying tax to the government, and you're giving something back rather than just like taking money in. So yes, so going back to starting in the city, you want to get a job, you want to get paid well, you want that life. When I watched The Wolf of Wall Street, you can see that across every individual episode, you could see, I know someone who that happened to. Maybe not all to the same person, but
There's a wee nod to each of these individuals, these characters that you grew up in the city with.
There's guys that crashed their Ferraris on the first day they owned them, those sort of things. There's just that, the world was like that. So I did 20 years in the same place, a stockbroking firm called Horgavet. We thought of ourselves as being the best. We might have been the second best, but we were as good a corporate stockbroker as there was in London.
Yeah.
And I stayed there through a variety of ownerships at top level, working away, and eventually being, I suppose, relatively good at it and meeting some brilliant characters along the way. The joy of my job was that you could do good, make money, and have an interesting life. You had to work hard.
That's it. You still have to graft.
Nobody is successful just by being lucky or just by being clever. If you're not prepared to put the time in, you're never going to get there.
No, and this is the thing, a lot of people forget, and especially these days, it's overnight successes that people are wanting, and you go, well, I'm sorry, that doesn't work that way. You need to know your trade. You need to learn about it. You need to develop relationships. And I suppose, like me, on the corporate side, mine's insurance, it was where I started, and for your good self within the banking and the broking side, that it's meeting those networks. Yes. And it's, at that point, developing the relationships, the contacts that may not be for today, it may be something that'll come in a couple of years, etc.
And because I'm not as smart as you,
no, I wouldn't go for
that to start with. I was just doing a job, did another job, and there's so many people who I've worked with in the past that I thought, I wish I'd been better friends with them or kept in contact better. And if I could go back and talk to my younger self, I would say work those contacts more, because you never know when you might need them or want them or can do some good on either way.
Well, I think it's exciting that you've achieved, through that, and I love the fact that you, like me, left Northern Ireland and created a whole new world, a new life for yourself over here, and became that success, and a success story from a little Northern Irish lad from Coleraine, and then came over here, became a success. The accent, everything, people, took that on board and allowed you to thrive through grafting. I think that is tremendous, and now you can, you've nurtured teams, individuals through the broking, investment broking world. And now, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but now that you've taken a new venture and you're going to be nurturing a whole new generation on something which we'll get to, which I'm quite excited by. But I suppose for me now, you've talked about the driving, you've talked about the backgrounds. Can you tell us a little bit more about maybe Sabian Technology, which you come in as a non-exec director?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting little firm in the green space. I think it does what every non-exec director wants their companies to do, which is doing good in a sort of a green world. We have a couple of projects which in their own way seem quite dull, but actually if they work, then they'll be brilliant for the world. Actually, we're passing Tower of London here. We have boiler control technology which runs the boilers in there.
So this is really, you've got lots of connections to this area.
Yeah, it's a big tourist area. It's quite funny. When they had the poppy exhibition round the tower, my children were just so annoyed with tourists when they were walking out here. They'd take the dog for a walk and they'd just go, "Oh, you can't get anywhere. Can't get anywhere."
Do you know this is where we live? It's not just your tourist spot.
Yeah, I know.
Well, great place to bring kids up.
We do a boiler control business at Sabian, and we have a business which is like in a real nascent stage of working with a Korean company to try and turn plastic bottles back into fuel oil.
Yeah.
And if we can get it to work, it'll change the world. Everybody thinks that. But I have seen enough and invested in enough small businesses that never quite worked.
It's a lesson learning. That's the thing about angel investing, which I like doing. It's trying to help those other entrepreneurs, those other founders, to develop their dreams. And I love to seeing them grow. But sometimes it doesn't work. Yeah. But you give it as much as long as they're giving it their all, yes. You can't knock them. But not everything works. That
is true. And it's one of the things, when I worked at Horgavet in a big bank, you were generally doing big companies that had already successful, and you were helping them with acquisitions, helping them raise millions, sometimes billions of pounds, and as a part of a team, and that's like big picture stuff. When I had my own business later on, everything is micro, and you are working away with small businesses, hoping that they'll get better. And we had it wasn't quite a rule, but we had a mindset that if we liked a company that we were raising money for, we'd put some of our own money in. We'd sometimes take stuff in fees. Yeah, and it helped with the clients as well. When you're raising money from people, if you said, "Yeah, I'm investing in this one."
I think that's cracker. Yeah. And how did you, I suppose, pivot from the corporate, as I say, the hamster wheel of being an employee, to that micromanagement of owning and having your own company? Or did you find it quite easy to step into that role?
So I suppose it's quite easy. It's interesting, people think of or talk about an imposter mindset. I never really thought I was very good, because I never thought I was the cleverest person in the room, though sometimes I had the most common sense and was the hardest.
Common sense sometimes better than actually having the full academic.
Absolutely. But so I stuck at the same job for a long time. I mean, if you think right back to when I first joined the bank for the first time, I joined a graduate training scheme after I left the army, and 12 months after that intake of graduates joined the scheme, I was the only one left. Everyone else had taken that their knowledge and moved off to another bank, whereas I just stayed there and worked away in the same place for the best part of 20 years, ending up on the board of our division, which was a limited company in its own right, and that was good. And you feel that you've added some value along the way.
Absolutely.
Being tenacious and being a sticker, I think that's one of those things that also comes from my background in Northern Ireland. My parents had taught me to stick at things. You've got to keep going. I mean,
you just can't give up.
Yes, and I mean, sporting-wise, in the past, I was a judo player.
Yeah, you actually represented Northern Ireland.
Yeah, no, I quite a lot. From about the age of 16 up till about 23, and work sort of took over. Judo is one of these sports, and it is brilliant. And I have volunteered to give things back to the sport of judo, both in Northern Ireland and over here. And I'll try and, keep doing that in a sort of mentoring and money way.
And it's a disciplined sport as well.
Oh, it is really good. And, my mum was disciplined in that way of saying, say like a Wednesday night when you just didn't want to go training, and she would go,
You're getting up.
You can't let down your old coach. You got to get up there and do your thing. And, so I did. And you stick to it. I was never the most skillful person in the world, but, I was pretty good, and I worked hard, and I did all right, and
You didn't do just all right.
The joy of being from Northern Ireland is you don't have to be absolutely brilliant to be an international, and there is something nice about doing that. So yeah, I had my first international at 16 as a junior. I had my first senior international when I was still at school. Fought for Northern Ireland against Denmark, which was quite cool.
Brilliant. And you get to do the travel.
Yes, you do.
Which for a little lad from Northern Ireland, that gives you that there.
There was the joy in doing that, and Northern Ireland to England was in those days quite a long way. You'd get through Larne, get the ferry, cross.
We had the big smoke being Belfast. To go across the water, that was a big deal for us little lads.
So in going, I used to train up in Belfast a lot, so I would go up and down maybe every other week to Belfast, go across to Antrim. As a family from Coleraine to Belfast, I think we went twice in 20 years. It was a long way.
Yeah.
A, the roads were worse, and B, of course, Northern Ireland in those days was a much more difficult and dangerous place. So we just didn't go up on from here, whereas I would go up and down on the train, and you like that. It gives you that bit of independence.
You learn to be a bit more self-aware and growth as well.
What's odd, of course, is that whereas I'd be quite happy to get on a train in Coleraine and go up to Belfast, when you become a dad, you would be thinking, you wouldn't want your son to be doing that. So I got to take my hat off to my mum for just going, let you go. But then the world, it was a different time and a different place.
Well, with me, growing up in the council estate, we were allowed to go out, from dusk to dawn. The community looked after you, and I couldn't get over what my mum allowed us to get away with. And there was no mobile phones. It was going to a payphone if required, and that was your communication. The clock was, if it's sunny, it's still time to go out, and if it's dark, it's time to go home. But these days, I can never even think about letting my kids to go out. Never mind across the road, never mind to play Kirby or whatever miles away. But we did.
Coleraine is on the River Bann, and we our house. I didn't live in a council estate, but we were poor middle class. Everybody in Northern Ireland in those days was poor, as I said. And we were near the river, and we'd be down there playing on the river's edge for hours at a time, like trying to fish, and literally with a bent pin at times. Though I did get laughed at by my friends for trying to do that. But you'd be down there, whereas we're next to the Thames here, there's no way I'd let my kids play on that.
But we did a lot more.
Oh, we did a lot worse.
I think it's going through. Yeah. And my last question on this here is, do you think there was a driving moment for you? Is there one key driving moment that you think was the lead to your successes in the corporate world? Or was it like a multitude of them, do you think? I
think there's a multitude of things. And I think like everybody, your ambition goes up and down, as you go through life, and up and down and up again. As I said, I left Northern Ireland with no money, like literally, like single parent family. We had student grants in those days, so we were quite lucky, but literally when I left university, I was maybe a couple of £100 in debt with no money from my parents and nothing. I have 2 grown-up children now who I send so much money to all the time. And my friends who have got older kids say it never stops.
Hemorrhages, I think is the right term.
So my ambition, as I said, was just to be safe and secure. Yeah. And then it was to accumulate stuff. And once you've accumulated some stuff, you want more stuff. But then once you realise, actually, I'm not going to get a super yacht, you can think, okay, well, I've probably got enough stuff now, and you can sort of stop. And you're almost embarrassed to think about it now when you've worked your way through and made a few quid. the money that you spent on things.
Oh goodness, the wastage.
Just ridiculous. And I feel, and I really feel that. I have a good friend, in fact, Patrick, who I've known for 55 years, who I've gone into partnership now with, which is...
I can't wait to hear this story.
But I remember us sitting there at one half term, and one of our friends had just come back from a safari in Africa at half term. And we were like looking at each other thinking, when we were at school, half term was 2 days, and you might have gone down to Barry's in Portrush.
That's right.
That was it. No, but now people were spending ridiculous amounts of money on their kids for nothing.
Foreign holidays, and kids also expect to be expanded on their cultural awareness, and we're going, well, we just went crabbing.
Yes.
And that was our cultural awareness.
Yes.
And remember we used to get the, what do you call it, instead of the fishing, we used to have that wooden thing with the orange string.
Yeah.
For going fishing and stuff, and now it's all the poshness. I despair, and I've got little young ones that I don't know what they're going to end up asking for next, to be honest with you, but it's going to be a lot more than what I had as a kid.
Oh, absolutely. It definitely is. So I think, in answer to your question, ridiculously, and I'm sort of slightly embarrassed to say I wanted money and security, but once I'd got my big house, once I was happy
secure
with that, and once I realised that I was never going to get, because I was at that point, I was never going to work hard enough or smart enough to get that massive yacht. So then you can sort of start to you can consolidate, and you think I will do good things, and then when it comes to the point of a change in your life, which happened when RBS took over ABN AMRO, which was the owner of my business, and I moved on and did my own thing, rather than just chasing that job at another big bank. You can say, actually, I don't want to work for anyone else. I'll do my own thing, and you can take, and I was lucky. Like, some people do it early on, and some people do it, when they've got a safety net. I was lucky; I had a safety net, but it worked for me, and I think that sort of that phase of my life was great fun. Maybe not as financially successful as some other phases, but it was good.
Also, a lot of lessons learned, and the fact that you came through and exited. You were successful. The fact that you sold that, it was acquired within London. Take a nod of the hat to you to be able to say that you built a company, you sold it. That's a tremendous entrepreneur success, Ranald, and I think that you can't knock it. Ranald, tell me the decision that you made to move into a completely different venture with Coleraine Football Club with your co-founder Patrick.
So Patrick actually says it's my fault. He doesn't think it's my decision. So back in the old days when I had a stockbroking business, one of the companies that we raised money for was Purple Bricks. That's where I first got to know Kenny Bruce, who owns Larne, and his big brother Michael. And I was having a meeting just over a year ago now with Michael, talking about potentially doing a deal with Purple Bricks, maybe buying it back, taking it private. And that in the end didn't go anywhere. But I asked Michael about how Kenny's football club was going, because I hadn't paid a lot of attention to it, but I know he'd bought Larne, and like everybody from Northern Ireland, from my generation, would have think of Larne as being, and apologies to you, as the only good thing about Larne is the ferry out.
Or the road out, is one or the other.
So ferry one way, road the other. And what else reason? And Kenny has done wonders with Larne, but they were doing really well in the league. So I said to Michael, tell me about the football. And he said, well, I can't tell you about it. Kenny can tell you that. But what's ridiculous, he said, from an insane decision to buy this football club, he's not going to make money on it, which is, he said, typical of Kenny. And I said, no way. How is that going to happen? He said, he's got some proper investors who are really interested.
The Americans coming in.
And I said, well, I've got to have a chat with him about it. And he said, no, absolutely. So I arranged to have a drink with Kenny, and I said to my friend Patrick, so Patrick's been my friend since primary school. So
I love the fact that you've got this partnership.
Yes, I watched your podcast with Kenny, and you were going on about having known him for 40 years. rubbish. I've known Patrick for 55 years.
There's no point showing off one-upmanship, but it is lovely that you have a childhood friend.
So I said, you interested in meeting Kenny, who owns Larne? He went, yeah, let's do that. And so Kenny told us all about it, and about the buyer, and about what was going on. And there were three things that struck me, and that I tell everybody when I'm pitching the stories. One, the absolute joy that he has for giving something back to Larne.
The community in the heart of the town again.
Absolutely. So that was that. Two, the schoolboy delirium of owning your own football club. How cool could that possibly be? And then three, the fact that he's going to make money on it is just ridiculous. So we listened to the story, and he said, but I'm not going to sell it now. He said, because this is just the start for Northern Ireland football. I'm raising a bit more money. Do you want to come and invest in Larne? I said, Kenny, I am from Coleraine, literally 50 miles down the road. Why on earth would I want to invest in Larne? And he said, brilliant. He said, what I really need is every team, or at least half the teams in the Northern Ireland Premiership, to be properly professional, properly run. If you could do something with Coleraine, that would just be brilliant. So, and I curated my dress today, wearing my
your Coleraine FC,
my Coleraine FC gilet, which is as good a piece of it's as good a piece of Coleraine kit as I could find.
I think it's amazing, and the thing with Coleraine FC, you know, they've won the Irish Cup.
We have done.
You have, and it's now going to be, I think, setting itself up for, I hope, a multitude of silverware, premiership titles over the next wee while for you guys, and having that vision to create not just a full-time professional football club, but it's just taking that next step of the journey for Coleraine FC and the community around it. Because I know you're going to do that and give that back.
No, absolutely. So seeing that in Kenny just like gave me that would be a good thing to do.
Spark.
And I'd sold my business, I wasn't working, you've got a few quid that you're willing to have fun with. So he said, do you know the guys at Coleraine? And I said, no. And he said, let me introduce you. They're a really good bunch of guys. They've done brilliantly, but it's all amateur. You know, the players are semi-pro, but the management of the club is well done, but is amateur. So Patrick and I flew over, last game of the season before last. In fact, we were playing Larne. They just won the championship, and then Kenny let us beat them 3-0, which...
It's nice of them to give a little bit away.
I think that was good. We met the guys, and they were really pleased, because money is a different sort of thing in Coleraine, especially small provincial town in Northern Ireland, to London, where there's loads of people with money, right? A house costs you the same as a football club. You know, it's ridiculous here. So I chatted to the guys, and they said, yeah, you know, it's got a very complicated ownership because of things that have happened in the past. Yeah. But if you're interested and serious, then we're happy to talk to you. So we worked our way through, and because of that interesting and complicated ownership structure, it took about 9 months, but we ended up buying a club just after Valentine's Day this year, 2024, and it was brilliant. The journey was good, but you know, crossing that finishing line was just fantastic. So Patrick and I, who've known each other for 55 years, pitched to the charity that owned the club, Friends of Coleraine Football Club, and we said, look, Patrick's from a stone's throw. You know, back in the 80s, that was literally a stone's throw from the club. I was a little bit further out of town, but we're here. We went to school here, went to church here, went to scouts here. This is our club, our town. And the charity, the men that had rescued the club a couple of times over the last couple of decades, you know, they said, yeah, you know, we've done our turn, it's your turn now. So absolute hats off to everybody who'd been there. And we came in, and we now just want to professionalise it so we win. And talking to the fans, they'd said, what's your ambition? Yeah, and I was just thinking, what do you mean, what's our ambition? We're going to win the league.
Well, you're a fan as well.
And they were going, and that was a sort of a good, you know. It's coming up to our centenary. I know Lauren's a bit older than us, but we're 97 years old as a club. So yeah, 27 is my target date for winning the league. We may not get there, we may do it earlier, but that would be great.
There's the goals going to be set, and also, as you said, you just said it with the fans, it is bringing the communities with you and giving back to those communities and building a new heart or re-establishing the heart of Coleraine with the football club?
I think so. There is that. When I did my first pitch to the board, I looked around the table and I said, and remember this is Northern Ireland, so it's only Northern Ireland this could say, I said, you're all white Protestant men. And I said, that's going to change. Let's be very clear. We're going to have this as a cross-community club. I want every community in the town, in the region, to be represented on the board. I want women on the board.
Inclusivity, absolutely.
This is, it's got to stop looking in and start looking out. And, hats off to the guys. They all said, yes, we want that. We just don't really know how to go about doing it. And I said, no problem. You
and Patrick will take that journey with them.
So that was important. And we'd said, we want to do something with the women's team. Colerane's a university town, so if the girls are playing football, they're probably playing at the university. So we want to work with them to get a Coleraine ladies. Currently we have a football team, but it's way low league, so we're going to build that up. And we want the boys to, like the academy, I say boys and girls, we want to build up the academy. And that's one of the things that Kenny was so pleased about, that his academy's working.
Organic growth.
He's got, it's as much as organic growth in the boys coming into your club, but it's really the fact that you're doing good for these people that might never have stayed at school.
What is it?
And he was so chuffed that he'd managed to get one of the boys from his academy into Queen's. And he said this boy would have left school at 16, played football, failed, and then he'd have been a plumber. And the fact is, he came to his academy, passed his exams, and he's at Queen's doing a science degree. And you think, can't beat that with a big stick. I mean, that is maybe not outwardly as satisfying as winning the league, but it's one of those things that just like internally you just got to go, what a joy.
Again, we keep coming back to helping people, nurturing people, and having that community internal of Coleraine Football Club, but the wider community of giving opportunities to that young and next generation, both of footballers and academics and potential business leaders and entrepreneurs like your good self. Yeah. You're giving that option, and you couldn't ask for more than someone to, as you said earlier on, giving back to your hometown.
Yeah.
And Coleraine FC, has an amazing history. She said nearly 100 years, plus the fact of won silverware titles, all this here, that is just now going to be the next stepping stone to that journey. And I can't wait to see that next part of Coleraine FC under you and Patrick's guidance with the board.
With the board, yeah.
And that's going to be the most exciting thing, sir.
I think so. That'd be great. Thank you.
Ranald, I have this here, I call it my daft power, me being a bit of an idiot, on quick fire questions. So, chucking it straight into you, can you give me 3 inspirational heroes?
Right. That's always the tricky one, because there's lots of people who, over the years, or from reading, you think they're a good guy. From Northern Ireland, and because I was a soldier once, I think Paddy Blair, who started the SAS, is got to be one.
Yeah.
Because he was a bright guy, he was an athlete, he was bonkers, but he still started the SAS.
Yeah.
And you've got to say, being from Northern Ireland, someone who was able to do that, that is a great thing to do.
And one of the most inspirational military forces in the world. Yes. And respected.
I know, started by a wee man from Ulster. Well, actually I say a wee man, a big man from Ulster.
Yep.
So he'd be one. Another one, I think, because I used to love watching the athletics on TV with my mum. In fact, I remember back in '72 when the Olympics were on in Germany, yeah. And we got our first colour TV to watch the running. And my mum was a great fan of Sebastian Coe. Yeah. And Sebastian Coe is a great inspiration for almost anybody, because yes, he was a good runner, but the effort he put in to win those races and those medals was phenomenal. And then the ability to cross over into a corporate or semi-corporate life, right. Both with Nike and running World Athletics, you just got to hat off to him. He didn't just stop when he could have. And then from a pure business point of view, one of the sectors that I did a lot of work in was house building. So I covered house building and estate agency. I did
not know that in you.
Well, you could sort of tell because the really, really bright guys, the tech companies or the biotech businesses, and the ones who didn't mind lying to people did oil companies and miners.
Creativity.
Okay, good. So I did a lot of construction house building. So the generation of guys who started the big house builders in the UK are epic. And I was there at the end of their building of their corporate life. So two that I would pick from that would be Tony Pidgley, who started Barclay Homes.
Yes.
And he is just epic. I mean, the legend is that, he was a gypsy, and I worked with him on the deal when they refinanced the business, and he was able to walk away with 100 million and still run the company. So that was brilliant. And at the other end of the scale of people doing this, I was broker to Persimmon, the biggest house builder in the UK. And people don't think Persimmon was a startup by a guy called Duncan Davidson. And Duncan Davidson was page boy to the Queen at her coronation. He was as posh as get out, and yet ended up starting and building the biggest house builder in the UK. So I just love them in that way of coming.
And great stories.
Yes, great stories. And it makes you think, as I said, with a bit of graft, with a bit of concentration and perseverance, you can do great things.
You can achieve. Well, again, like your good self, the fact of a little lad from Coleraine in a small country of Northern Ireland, coming to the big city of London and achieving, succeeding, and now helping people. Yeah. I think that's brilliant. And I suppose that leads on to the next quick fire is, can you give people out there 3 steps to success?
I think the most important thing is, almost no matter what job you start at, work hard. And if you don't like that job, you can always move on, but never stop working hard. Try and judge that the people you work with are good people. Yeah. Both your peers and your bosses and people that you employ. So wherever you are in that stage, hard work, good people, and be as lucky as you can be.
A little dash of luck.
A little dash of luck. I mean, you can't do it all on luck. You can't do it all on being brilliant. But if you've got some good people around you and you work hard, then you'll be successful.
Go through. I think that's great. And in regard to, how would you say 3 ways you try to unwind from the previous corporate life to now in the commercial life that you're in as well still?
Well, like everybody our age, I say everybody, most blokes, I love sports, either live or on TV. So, much to my embarrassment, I probably have access to every single TV channel, so, and therefore sometimes you can't find the sport on the phone or on your telly, but it's always there. Yeah. I also have a 20-year-old son who would find it ludicrous that I didn't have Sky and this and that, to watch everything. So I love a bit of sport, and I used to read a lot, and now I listen to a lot of books, both fiction and non-fiction. Yeah. So those would be my 2 ways. Also, I have kids, and I spend a lot of time with my children, or certainly as much as I can.
Well, that's it. You kind of get to see the kids grow and stuff as well. I'm an avid reader. I read 3-4 books a week. I'm a speed reader, and I love grabbing one book and part of the house and reading part, like a couple of chapters, and then going, maybe be in the kitchen grabbing another book. It's like watching a TV show. I can go from different episodes to different through, and I love that. Although having the kids, it's not as much as I used to, I've got to be honest. And I suppose that leads neatly on to, where would you say 3 destination holidays that you've either been to, you love, and you kind of recommend?
So holidays, interesting one. I like skiing, even though I
still haven't been.
60, you see, got to go skiing. I did my first ski trip, was a school ski trip from Coleraine. We skied in Bulgaria when it was still behind the Iron Curtain, which was an epic adventure in its own right, especially when you're only 15. Yeah. So that was brilliant. And I still like going to the mountains. I went skiing with my 2 eldest at Christmas last. I must admit I'm a lot slower than I used to be, and my 20-year-old will charge down these hills and just get, oh, for goodness sake, Dad. And you're thinking, I'm fine, I just don't want to fall over.
I don't want to break anything.
So mountains anywhere. 2, I haven't been back to Northern Ireland forever. And so I took Rory, my eldest, to Northern Ireland for the first time. Went to Londonderry, Giant's Causeway, seeing Coleraine, where I grew up. And you realise what a nice place it is. And obviously, with my new venture. Subsequently, I've been back a lot and will
That Coast Road.
continue to go back a lot, hopefully for the rest of my life. So
It's weird that we try to escape it and then it tugs us back in again.
Yeah.
Like that warmth, love that Northern Ireland kind of brings at the same time. I think it's one of my favourites.
Yeah.
And I suppose three foods.
well, I thought long and hard about this question,
Yeah.
and potatoes. It's a very
Nothing
good-
wrong with spuds.
Nothing wrong with spuds. And I was thinking I'd quite like rice and I quite like pasta, but I wouldn't like to live without potatoes ever again.
They're very versatile.
They are indeed. And I had a brilliant secretary from Northern Ireland once when we were working. We took out for Christmas lunch at the Savoy, and she was in raptures that they had potatoes 8 different ways on the menu. So we had to choose every single one with our Christmas lunch. And I just thought, yeah, I like that. Good girl, Christine. And I love food generally, but I can't just say chocolate or rice. So potatoes is a good one.
The potatoes just going through it. I think it's cracker. And I suppose still, you're not as into the corporate as you were by means of driving a company, etc. But how many hours a day would you say that you work still?
So again, this is quite an embarrassing one because I've watched you interviewing people who've still got jobs, and they say, oh yeah, I'll probably do 14 hours a day and every waking hour. I like to think that I probably do a solid 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
Maybe some people think that might be an exaggeration, but when I started, you work every hour you can. Then you go into that phase of life-work balance where you'll work and then you'll take the time off. Then when you have your own business, life and work are as one. So wherever you are thinking about work. So when I had my own broking firm, my partner was really into horse racing. And when we'd go horse racing, everybody we chat to, we were thinking, could they be a client? Could they be a customer? So even though we were having fun, it was life and work just got merged. And then once I sold that business and started doing my own thing, I quite like to not work.
Put your energies into different things.
Yes.
Well, my last quick fire for you today is, and I think that leads naturally onto it, is 3 ambitions you have or goals you have for the next wee while. I think I can gather one of them now.
Yes, well, undoubtedly, because I am wearing my Coleraine top, and we'll talk about that a bit more. I'm very keen for Coleraine to be successful, to move from the lovely club that it has been to being a powerhouse, as it probably deserves to be. To, I want to help my children, get on to move successfully through to that next stage. As I said, my dad died when I was relatively young, and I never had that support. And you get through it, no matter what. But I just sort of think I'd quite like to be there, helping them in whatever they wanted to do.
A guiding light, almost.
A little bit, though. My daughter keeps saying, "Stop telling me to become an accountant,"
which you were asked at school to be yourself.
Yes. So I go, fair enough. But I think so. The 2 things I try and do are kids and the football club and everything else. It's not so much ambition. Now that I'm a bit older, I do a lot more charity things, and I have a new way of doing certain charity things, which doesn't spend all my money, but actually helps people through. So that would be my 3 things that drive me on.
Well, I think it's gracious that you now also help communities. You help people and you nurture people as well, and it shows the kindness that you give back to society after doing quite well after your own grafting, and it's so respectful for that, sir. And
we have a responsibility. Anyone who's made a few quid has a responsibility to give it back, and if they don't give it back, I have no time for them.
Absolutely.
You can have as much money as you want, but you can't take it with you, and you can't spend it all. And yes, you can give it to your kids, but they're just going to be horribly spoiled. So you've got to help, whether. And as I said, I was a soldier, so I do more army stuff now, which...
Well, veterans and mental health, we talked.
Yeah, which gives you, a complete joy. I mean, I was the luckiest soldier in the world back in the 80s. I was like a peacetime warrior, or Cold War warrior, as we were called. And I played a lot of sport and met some really good guys, and therefore I owe it to everybody who'd served to help. And but beyond that, all sorts of other.
Amazing.
I'm not to blow my own trumpet, but I just think that you should help.
We're in a position.
Big way or small way.
I think it's great. Well, thank you for coming on my podcast today. I really do appreciate it. And thank you again, sir.
No, absolute pleasure.